Welcome to Rick's Corner. The man, the myth, the legend. Now on with the show.
All right. Welcome to Rick's Corner. I have a friend here back from Maine.
Yes.
Who came out this past few days to look around and visit me and see some things and do the show. His name is Daryl Conant. He's got books out, which I've advertised on my show many, many times, about Vince Gironda's gym back in the day, because that was a legendary gym and Vince was a legend. And he came out to visit and do the show, and so we're going to talk a little bit about all that.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, how long have you been training?
I've been training. I started when I was 12, and I was just kind of messing around, and I started training for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bodybuilding bug really hit when I was about 18 years old. And then it was at that time I was going to school and going to college in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to know more about bodybuilding because I really started to get into it. And when I would ask guys at the gym, no one would help me. It was very interesting because they were either doing drugs or they just didn't have the time, or they're doing powerlifting and stuff, but no one really wanted to teach me natural bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had bought this this source book. I've never seen it anywhere else advertised or anywhere else in any bookstore or anything, but it was a source book that had all the addresses of all the manufacturers of all the equipment, and then in the back of it, it had all these addresses of all these famous bodybuilders of the time. So there was like 100 addresses. And so I sat down one day and I wrote probably about 75 to 100 letters to all these bodybuilders to see, if they would be willing to, give me some advice, give me some tips, things like this. Didn't hear back from anybody. And I was totally bummed out. And so then there was one address, it was actually a nutritionist named Ron Kozloff out in Detroit, Michigan. And he was the owner of NSP Products, NSP Research Products out in Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was just a phone number. So I called him. And for 2.5 hours, he gave me probably one of the most enlightening conversations I've ever had at that time, because he told me everything about nutrition, more than what I was learning in school and so on. It was just kind of like way out there. It was talking about liver tablets and protein and fat, and really it was like basically a ketogenic type of a plan. Right. So I started to, I was write down everything. After the 2.5 hours, my hand was actually sore from writing so much.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of this conversation, I asked him, I said, well, could you somehow train me via the phone or the mail or whatever for bodybuilding? And he's like, no, I can't do that. You're going to have to talk to the Iron Guru. And I'm like, who's the Iron Guru?
Oh, boy, yeah.
And so he goes, that's Vince Gironda out in Studio City, California. And so, again, I'm in Tennessee. I'm like, I can't fly out. I don't have any money. And so then I ended up getting the phone number from Ron, and I called Vince. And it was very interesting. He was, this is how the conversation went. I called him up, and I said, hi, is Vince there? And he said, what do you want? And I said, I'm trying to call for Vince Gironda. And so then he hung up. So I called again.
That'd be typical.
And I said, hi, I'm calling for Vince. And he's like, what do you want? So he got a little, I didn't know what was going on. So then I said, is Vince there? And so then he hung up again. So then the third time I call up, and a trainer, she answered the phone, and she says, what do you want? Have you been calling all this time? And I said, yeah. And she goes, you've been talking to Vince each time, but he doesn't have time for, the BS. And so I said, well, all right, I didn't know I was doing anything. And so she goes, what do you want? And I said, well, I'm a friend of Ron Kozloff, and he recommended that I talk to Vince about bodybuilding, all this. And then as soon as I said Ron Kozloff, she asked Vince if he would take the phone call, and he said, well, why? And so then she said that it was because of I'm a friend of Ron, and I guess they're really close friends. Mm-hmm. So then Ron kind of got us connected somehow. So Vince started talking to me, and then that's when everything kind of changed for my whole life, because he said, why don't you come up to California? And I said, well, I really can't do that. I'm a student. So he said, well, send me pictures of your physique, and then I'll send you a program. And so we had like this mail order program that he was famous for.
Yeah.
And so I started to do. So that's what I did. So I got into it, and he was very brutally honest, with my physique and everything. And so then he sent back this program, and he had me eating like 3 dozen eggs a day.
Oh yeah.
And I was eating eggs and like 80 to 100 liver tablets,
Yeah.
like raw milk. I mean, all this stuff that I never even in my mind, because I'm taking classes in college that teaching the pyramid, saying like 1 egg a week, and here I am taking a big chance. So I started doing everything that Vince was telling me to do, and my body was changing like crazy. And so I remember the first experience I had after I started to really start to change with the exercise and everything. And then I went to the gym one day, and these guys were looking at me and seeing how I was training. I was doing like a belly row. When you're lying on the ground, it's like this exercise, and you pull in, and it's great for the lats. And so they started laughing at me, and they're saying, "What in the world is that?" I said, "Well, I'm just doing some different things." And so when I went into the locker room and took my shirt off, it was like I was so pumped up and ripped that the guys were like, "What cycle are you taking?" Everyone thought I was taking drugs.
Yeah.
And so I just said, "Well, I'm just taking a lot of supplements and I'm eating a lot of eggs." And so anyway, so that's kind of where it all began. And I did this for 5 years. I was doing this mail order program under Vince's direction for 5 years. And so I would send my money and he'd send back a program. And so for 5 years, it was going great. And then I went to graduate school, and from graduate school I worked at the Olympic Committee. And so I kind of lost touch with Vince for a little bit, for a couple of years. So then I had enough money to save up for a trip out to California, finally. So I had a good job, and I was finally at the point where I could come out here. I came out here in 1997, and I was looking for Vince's gym. I couldn't find it. So I went to World's Gym in Venice, and they said, unfortunately, Vince died 2 months earlier.
Right.
So I never got my chance to meet Vince in person to thank him for everything that he'd done for me. I mean, I was doing great in bodybuilding contests. I was, placing in the top 3 of every show. And so I just wanted to thank him for everything that he did for me. So when I found out that he passed away, it totally broke my heart, because I wanted to see the gym. I wanted to work out on the equipment, and I wanted to get my picture underneath the sign up front.
Yeah.
And so then I came back home, and for 10 years, I was kind of in search of like whatever happened to Vince's gym.
Yeah.
Where'd the equipment go?
Yeah.
And where are all the guys that were students coming out? And I thought people would be writing books about this guy.
Yeah.
And so giving all the information and so on. So there was nothing out there. And then all of a sudden I get this phone call from a guy who knew of a guy that had the Vince's gym sign. And this blew me away, because I did a couple things online talking about Vince and everything. And so this guy kind of connected into that. And so then he said, well, since you're interested in Vince, maybe you might be interested in the sign. So I ended up buying the original Vince's gym sign that hung outside the gym. And so when it came to the business, it was this moment of, it was like Indiana Jones finding like the Temple of Doom, or whatever, all that. And so then I ended up putting the sign up, and so I finally got my picture underneath the Vince's gym sign. It was like a moment that's really, I think that as a bodybuilder or somebody could really appreciate that history.
Yeah,
really
of course,
understand that.
Of course.
And so that was just an amazing piece. And then 3 years later, I got a call from a guy that knew someone that they actually had the equipment, and it was housed. And so I ended up giving him a call, and he had the equipment, but it was just too expensive for me to handle. It was just, the price was too much. So I just backed off. But so then in 2015, when we had the Vince's Gym induction, or when Vince got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I met some guys, and then there was a gentleman named Mitch Carter, who was the master of ceremonies. And through a long story, and I actually wrote about all this in the book as well, but to make a long story short, he ended up buying the equipment from this gentleman. And so they were going to try to make a go of reopening Vince's gym with all this equipment, kind of a retro style
Not in
gym.
the same location, though.
No, but things didn't work out. It didn't happen. And so he called me up and asked me if there was any way I could help. And so I ended up buying about 3/4 of all the equipment. So I have all the iconic pieces pretty much of Vince's gym.
Where?
In my own gym. So
I see. Okay.
So I've actually developed now it's a museum. It's a Vince's Gym museum that it's so cool, because I have all the equipment set up, all the pictures, and as this has been unfolding, people have been contacting me and sending me pictures because they have worked out at Vince's gym, and so they have pictures of themselves in front of the sign. So now I have those pictures underneath the sign. So it's really
this is really nice. You built it into something.
Yeah, I really built it into something. So it's really kind of a tribute to Vince, even though I never got to meet him. It's just my way of really kind of keeping his training philosophy alive and everything that he did. So it's kind of like paying it back a little bit.
That's a lot of eggs to eat daily. Did you have a hard time digesting them?
No, you know what's interesting? Before, because I'm totally into research. I've in graduate school I did a lot of research on Vince's exercises and a lot of his methodology, and especially with the nutrition. So I'd go to the doctor and I had my blood tested, and I didn't tell him what I was doing. I just said I just want to see what my cholesterol is and so on. And so they would do it, and so I go on Vince's diet. And it was really kind of interesting. I would take about 6 ounces of cream, and I would throw in about 6 eggs. And I would just, with a fork, I would stir it up and then I would drink it with a bunch of digestive enzymes, a bunch of supplements and all this stuff. I was just like, anyway, so I did all that. And I did this probably 3 or 4 times a day. And so then I did it for a month, went back to the doctor. And at the same time I'm training, my body was getting so ripped. It almost scared me, Rick, because I was getting so defined that I thought something had been wrong or I was doing something dangerous. But then I got to the doctor, and I took my shirt off, and he's like, "Wow." He goes, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Well, I just been eating eggs."
Nothing but eggs.
Nothing but eggs, but all 3 times, a bunch of times a day, 6 times. And so then the doctor took the blood cholesterol. I got the results back, and I dropped 40 points. So my blood cholesterol was 170. At the end of this thing, it was 140. And so then the doctor, which was kind of crazy, he's like, he told me, if you continue to eat eggs, you're going to have a heart attack. And I said, well, how am I going to have a heart attack when there's no biomarkers at all? Matter of fact, my cholesterol is coming down. So then I kind of started doing a lot of research in nutrition and so on, and found that really it's not really the cholesterol or the fat that's the problem. It's really more the sugar. And it's always kind of been the sugar that has been the problem and the cause really for arteriosclerosis.
Right.
And so the more I started getting more following Vince's stuff, and I think that Vince was kind of a pioneer in really the ketogenic diet. If you really look at it, so it's basically, it's getting your body into ketosis and filling up the glycogen stores like every 72 hours.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the pattern that I would follow. And then you have this definition program, and then you cycle into the definition program, and it would really work.
What was the workout like?
The workout was, it's interesting because they would only last between like 40 to 45 minutes. And you go in, you hit it hard, and it's really based on complete isolation, like no cheating whatsoever, and putting so much tension on the muscle, eccentrically and concentrically, that by the time you get to the last rep, you're exhausted. You can't go anymore, and so you've stimulated the nervous system so much that you have to stop and go to the next thing. And so I found out that the reason why Vince would do that for 45 minutes, I learned this from Larry Scott. I used to talk to Larry Scott a lot about Vince's programs after Vince had passed away, because I still wanted to do more, and I was doing a lot of research with some of the things. I need some answers from Larry. So he would talk to me for about 2.5 hours, and what he said that the reason why you go 45 minutes is because the growth hormone levels start to plummet very fast, and then your cortisol levels rise at a very fast rate, and this is very true. So then it was at that point where if you go beyond 45 minutes at a really intense pace, that your body would be depleted, and then you'd be into a catabolic state, and you'd actually go into muscle wasting.
Wow, I didn't know all that. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And so all the programs that he had for me were, he would write them, and if you just did them without really focusing and concentrating on them, you go through and say, that didn't do anything. And so when you would really slow things down, like he'd have you do 4 sets of 12 reps, and that would be it for one exercise. But the pump that you would get off of those 4 sets were amazing. And so I would be in the gym for 40 minutes, and everybody else would be in there for 2 hours.
Yeah, I never trained more than 35, 40 minutes for anything. I'm in and out before you know it, and people say, aren't you stay longer? I said, what for? I get done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't have to stay that long. I'm used to do an hour and a half, but I don't feel the need anymore. I can do 3 or 4 exercises, 4 sets each, and you can do that all in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
if you do it right.
And it's great because you're maximizing your growth hormone levels.
Yeah.
And that's really what sort of the whole premise behind bodybuilding is trying to maximize the sympathetic nervous system.
I like this idea of the eggs. I think I'll start increasing my eggs daily because I think that's. We used to do this years ago. I used to buy them in Venice at this Edgemar Farms. They were 39 cents a dozen.
Oh, wow.
So I'd buy like 6 dozen at a time, and I'd go through them. I was eating a lot of eggs a day, and I made good progress on those eggs.
Yeah.
And I forgot about it. Ed Giuliani used to live on eggs too. I mean, he was always ripped. I think that's a great way to go. And you get hungry and you want to eat something, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's sustains the need to eat carbohydrates.
Yeah, I see that.
That's the one thing that I noticed when I was, because again, you're taking a lot of digestive enzymes too, to help with the digestion, so it makes it a lot easier. But
do you think it's okay to eat them raw like that?
Yeah, because for about 30 years I've been doing it, but they say that the way you get salmonella is when the fecal matter is outside the egg.
I know.
And then if you crack the egg and it hits the fecal matter, then that's when the salmonella.
What I do is I put mine in the microwave.
Okay.
And I also heard recently on the news the microwave for food is the best way to go because it doesn't take the vitamins out of it. It cooks it so quick that you can't lose anything.
Oh, wow.
So I do a couple of minutes in the microwave and then it comes out like a souffle.
Okay.
I blend them, put them in there, they come out like a big souffle and they're easy to eat, and that's the end of it. At least that way they're cooked a little bit and it would kill any salmonella. Make sense?
Oh, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I do it that way, and they're easy to eat, and they're kind of bland, but so what? They do the job.
Yep. And then raw milk.
Yeah.
You know, fortunately, I can get raw milk, and I have no problems. I have no lactose problems or anything.
The reason this table is shaking is I'm scratching my ankle from the goddamn mosquito bites that got in the other room. So the training and that type of nutrition does get you in shape.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And so I've always stuck with the programs, and then over the years have kind of refined them to really what works best for me. So since Vince is not around anymore and Larry Scott's not around anymore, so we got to kind of take the baton and kind of create.
Don Hallworth's still around.
Yeah, I've been trying to meet him.
Yeah, I see him down at the beach once in a while, but I don't know. He has his own world, I guess. He was going to come on here, and he was with Robert Blake. Remember Robert Blake?
Yes.
Robert, what do you want him for? I said, well, it's really none of your business why I want him. So I don't know. I never really went anywhere. I guess I could really push it if I wanted to. But he has a lot of knowledge too. He's not what he used to be.
Right.
Not the same at all. But back in the day, he was something else.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's probably the best deltoid development of anybody.
Unbelievable. And arms, deltoids and arms. It's crazy.
But those guys were fantastic, and the great thing is that like every day when I go to work, and I can see the equipment, you know, and if the leather could speak.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Oh yeah.
It has all the stain marks. It has the sweat marks. And, and you know, they have like the Roman chair. Yeah. Where you put the feet in that little tiny. It's just a little tiny L shape. And if you look at the base of it, it has the footprints. Because you do it with your shoes off. Yeah. And so I mean, just stuff like that, and just realizing that some of the best bodies ever built were built on these pieces of equipment.
I have Joe Gold's table saw out there, the one he built all of his equipment with.
Oh man,
I've had that table saw almost 40 years. He loaned it to me one day. He says, "Just keep it."
Wow.
So it's sitting out in my carport.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, all these years.
Just that history.
And then the bench press that I benched with Arnold on is down in San Diego, and the guy owns it. He says, "I'm going to drop it off to you one of these days when I move up north." And I'm still waiting for him to do it, but he did say he was going to do it. But I'd like to have it.
Oh yeah, you can see.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to me, it just means a lot. I mean, I just think that one, it's just the preserving the equipment, but also the history behind it. And then the philosophy that goes with it, because I wrote a couple of books about all the information that I learned from Vince and Ron and Larry and so on, and it's been great. But I wanted to try to preserve that philosophy and keep it going.
Let's talk about your book for a minute. Where they can get it?
They can get it on my website. It's www.darylconant.com, and just you can see all the information there.
Okay, I'm going to put that up there. How many people come to your gym?
I have about 200 members.
That's nice.
And I do a lot of like personalized, so it's really kind of like one-on-one training, and then I have memberships. But it's great because it's a small little facility, a little bit bigger than Vince's, but I'm always there, so I'm kind of. It's just nice. It's nice to always be there and help people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming all this way.
I know it was a long trip.
It was a long trip.
It's been a huge honor. I mean, I've been watching you for so many years, and it's like I'm now in it. I'm now in the show.
Yeah, you're now in the haunted house.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Well, we're going to close out because we're going to go to dinner somewhere and have a nice eggs, probably some prime rib, something different for a change. But thank you guys for watching Rick's Corner. Daryl, thank you so much for being here. We're going to put this up, tell them where they can get the book, and you guys should really get the book because there's a lot of history and a lot of knowledge there that he's put together. He's done a first-class job with it. I've seen it, I have it, and it's amazing. So thanks you again for watching Rick's Corner, and stay tuned for more, and we will see you next time.
Great, thanks.
Hey everyone, now you can have the Gold's Gym logo drawn by me, the artist Rick Drasin, personalized and made out to you and signed by me to frame and put on your gym wall or wherever you see fit to do so. It's a piece of bodybuilding history. It will never be duplicated again. It's the largest selling icon t-shirt logo in the world, and I'm the guy that drew it, and I will draw it for you. Just go to my website, rickdrasin.com, and order there. You can pay through PayPal, and it'll be sent out right away. And be sure to watch Rick's Corner for all the videos on bodybuilding, nutrition, fitness, pro wrestling, and anything that suits your interest as far as getting physically fit and being the best you can be from the golden era of bodybuilding.
It's Rick Drasin. He's the equalizer, baby. See you next time.